Welcome to another episode of Revenue Leaders Uncovered. Super honored to be joined by Greg today. Greg, if you can introduce yourself, but also the awesome company you're working for.
Yeah, Ollie, first off, great to be here. Really appreciate the opportunity and honored to be here as well. So, yeah, for those who don't know me, I'm Greg Vandemark, and I am the sales chief of staff for SALUS, which is a digital safety compliance field software for construction companies. So, really, what that means is we just help mitigate risk, help keep people safe in the field. They're often, building our futures, and we're helping to ensure their safety and to protect the business as well. So yeah, super excited to be here, Ollie.
Yeah, definitely a really cool space. I speak to multiple different like construction technology companies, and obviously it's such a cool industry because you actually have a direct impact in so many people's lives. And obviously from yourselves bringing safety to a construction site, we have all heard horror stories of what goes on, what's happened. I mean, I won't go into the gory details, but yeah, it's definitely such a useful thing. What I'd love to know, and I think the listeners would, is what makes Salus different compared to maybe some of your competitors in the space?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ollie. So with Salus, it's interesting. If you look at other technologies, a great example I love to use is Google as a web browser, and I think they provide such a great example of how oftentimes it's not being first to market that actually makes you the innovator and the leader in the space. And so, you think about, years and years before Google, all these other browsers like Netscape and others. And then there was that moment where, hey, Google came on the scene and they dominated, right? They got the user interface right and so many other things technically right, but they had that advantage of actually coming after the early technologies did in that space. And so with Salus, I would say we've, had that similar advantage in the sense that we came onto the scene after a lot of other legacy safety softwares had been on the market already. And a lot of them had been developed in the early, 2000s, 2010s before we really had these, right? These mobile
Mm.
phones on construction job sites. And so we started in 2018, and it was all born out of a job site accident. Our founder, Gabe, one of the things about Salus and our identity is Gabe actually came from construction, not from software. And so that was really key too, was he was solving a challenge initially and a stress and a fear that he had about the risk for his business and his employees for his own construction company that he had. He was, on, 70-story and plus buildings as a window glazer. And long story short, they had an incident that happened. It was a near miss. No one was hurt, but he didn't have that paper form that should have been done to ensure their compliance. And so he was written up at the top of the company. And so it was mitigating that risk. He needed to solve that problem. And so getting back to your question, Ollie, and how is SEALS different? Well, obviously the roots in construction plays a big part. When we came into the market, emphasizing the mobile app first, that was the first thing that Gabe designed with his co-founder. And then from there, because we were getting richer raw data in, because it was so easy to use for the field, we then later built out the cool looking reports and dashboards that executives then need to know, hey, is safety moving the needle or not from a risk compliance standpoint for the business. And then the last thing I'll say about how we're different is really being bullish on AI. And I know AI is a hot topic these days, and there's it just seems like everyone's talking about it. Is it actually helping people or not, or is there just a lot of hype? And I think that skepticism is really understandable, frankly, because of how much hype there's been. We're focused really on prudent AI, actual real world capabilities that can help people in the field, whether they're a sales customer or not. So we also have, kind of similar to ChatGPT, a free version of our safety assistant AI tool that anyone could go out and start using to help them become safer today.
Absolutely love that. I think I love the fact of, and obviously we're talking about driving revenue earlier, but like this sort of free side to it to go, look, we're actually, with our main goal is to help you and actually getting that little taste of, okay, this is what you could be doing. And then obviously bringing in the real product. I think it's such a smart way to be going to market and seeing a lot of companies that are bringing out those AI features of people being skeptical. Okay, is it just another gimmick? But actually being able to sort of test and trial and going, okay, cool. No, this is actually going to be really useful for what we're doing. And the story you told me there is one of the reasons I love this context space of that I've had a few different founders on this podcast, and they've talked about their story. I think last week we filmed with the founder of 4M Analytics, and he was from Israel. He was in the forces, and again, he used Google as an example of that. They were scanning just above the ground, and then his job in the forces was looking for basically mines underground. And he then saw that actually construction sites, when they're drilling down, they're actually hitting potentially mines or hitting wells or hitting whatever. But Google had never scanned underground or used radar to look under it. And because he came from that space and into tech, it allowed him to actually build a product which is useful for the tech. It's not copying someone, it's finding from first-hand experience, where can we add value to this industry? And exactly what obviously you guys are doing as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important that a business is actually built off of those real world experiences and problems. It just adds so much credibility to then later finding things like product market fit, right? And are we actually helping people solve real problems?
Definitely. Where I'd love to take the conversation is a bit about recruitment, something obviously I hold close to my heart. Um, I'd love to understand what your method of madness is for, let's say, getting the right team in place.
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say that I've learned a lot from our chief revenue officer, Sharon, and how she approaches, finding the right people. And a lot of that, you think about the markets and compound interest. And I think about looking at her experience in her career and that compound relationship and network building that she's done over the course of her 40 years in construction tech. And so I think that's really been a key part, and you don't know how that one relationship you build now is going to later come back, but I think the obvious just how you treat people, the golden rule, really helps come back in really positive ways. And then, selecting for the attributes that you want, the values that you have within your business. One of our core values here at Salus is being a true partner. And that applies to, of course, not only our customers and making sure that we're true partners with them, they're true partners with us, but also that we are true partners to each other as a team within Salus. And we're looking for people with that mindset when we're recruiting, but also people who ideally have construction technology experience is definitely a plus, right? So if you've already been in that space uh, in a sales capacity, let's say for example, then you are more likely to have a faster ramp time because you get the buyer, you get the motion, you understand the industry and some of the core challenges. So definitely a way to help be more efficient and strategic in finding the right people for the role and ensuring that fit.
Yeah, definitely. I think you touched on the two most important things then. It's something that I'm always educating, let's say, companies just coming out of stealth or very early on. And you can always tell when it's a techie guy that's gone into the construction space generally. And they go, oh, we don't need people with construction tech for on the sales team. And I go, look, you're going into an industry where one is, you touched on, their trust. They will build partnerships. It's all about who you know. It's word of mouth of, they're very loyal people generally in the construction industry. To get them to go away from what they know is very hard. That's why it's such a hard sell for a lot of sellers. And then having that experience of understanding how to communicate with a construction person. If you've sold to just CISOs and you try and communicate with a construction manager or whatever it be, general contractor, it is such a different conversation you're having, that if you don't know how to communicate to that one individual, you're going to struggle to start with, and the ramp up period is going to be a lot slower. And then in a startup, people do not have cash to burn. So you have to be making those strategic decisions. Okay, cool. We need people who understand how to communicate and are good at building trust, just like you said. So we'd love to touch on those 2 points.
Yeah, it's something just to build on that a little bit with the finding those people who ideally have that construction or construction technology experience is the fact that, again, coming, and I've sold in just pure SaaS tech before, where there was in-person events obviously as part of it, but it just seemed less important compared to the construction industry, where being in person, actually being boots on the ground, shaking hands, meeting face to face, being able to go out for lunch, dinner, whatever it might be, or put together panel social discussions. We're having one next week that we're putting on. So that's such a core piece of it as well, right? And you would think would be just a basic trait or skill
Mhm.
set, let's say, for sales professionals. But again, for us, for the construction industry, I'd say that's especially important.
Yeah, definitely. Some people would even look at it. The construction industry still, with even the amount of tech that's coming out, is in somewhat slightly old-fashioned in the sense of that you shake hands, you go out for lunch, you go out and do all these things you would expect to happen in the corporate world that you see in movies all the time. But actually, it's how it is. But it's the tech is bringing in to modernize an old-fashioned industry, which is why again it's so challenging of that you're trying to convince these people actually you do need to modernize, but we're still going to bring that old-fashioned charm, I suppose, by whining and dining you to bring that. And again, it just builds that level of trust. There's nothing better than shaking hands. I mean, I struggle because I'm based in the UK and all my clients are in the US, but still, it is so important to be doing it. Where I'd love to get your perspective on is it a bit about building culture. I'd love to understand what you've done at Salus to help build a culture there.
Yeah. So really, there's a few different things. I mean, going back to one of our core values I mentioned earlier with being a true partner, those values are so key. And so that's something that I think culture really does come from the top down. It's reinforced from the bottoms up if you get buy-in from the people and we're in alignment with those core values, but it has to come consistently from the top down. And so Gabe, our CEO and co-founder, I mentioned earlier, will consistently, and I think consistent is such a key word here too, bring up those values. And so that comes up in a variety of ways. We'll have our annual kickoff. We'll have obviously our quarterly business reviews where we had that last week in Phoenix, Arizona. We have our bi-weekly all hands meetings as well. And those bi-weekly meetings, it's interesting. At first I thought, oh, that's far more frequent than I've had at other organizations in the past, but I've really come to love that consistency of that openness. And so I think also that openness that Gabe and the other senior leaders of the company share with the people here at Salus really helps with that credibility and that trust with our team that we rely on so heavily to actually execute on our mission for the company. It also comes up in other ways, like the annual kickoff is in person. QBR last week was in person, but looking at having different in-person events throughout the year too, to come together as a team. Because again, in a world of AI and everything digital, like we were just talking about a moment ago with the customer side, I think employee engagement on a team-based side as well, so key to be able to have those in-person meetups whenever you can.
Definitely. It's actually something I was reflecting on this morning of that I was looking at the current clients I'm working with. And if I go back a year, the amount of clients that were on just hiring remote, they just wanted people, wherever it be, will hire the best people. To actually, I'm pretty sure 90% of my roles now are either hybrid or they're in office, which is taken a massive U-turn from where it was. And yes, okay, I think maybe this was prompted by how much talent was on the market that I think companies found it a little bit easier. Okay, cool. We could actually staff a really good office in one location and get people in office. But I do think people's mindsets as well have slightly changed of the they want to go to the office. I'm getting candidates reaching out to me going, I'm so glad this is on site. I've really wanted to get back into an office, have that people interaction. So the fact of you guys are doing that in-person stuff actually I think is so important of that. And I think a lot of companies that are remote do overlook it because people are, in a sense, from my side as a recruiter, crying out to be around other people, engage with other people, not just be sat at home all the time like me. But I love it, so it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I love the balance personally. I love being able to, obviously, there's flexibility that comes. I have two young kids, being able to work from home, also just start earlier and not have the time of the commute. So I get that
Yeah,
side of it. We also have a office here in Vancouver area. So I'm able to go in there when I want and be able to connect with people in person. Also really helpful too. So I love that hybrid or that option. And then it gives you the flexibility to go out and meet with customers too.
definitely. Well, I'd love to take the conversation a little bit about yourself. I'd love to know what's led up to obviously being the sales chief of staff, which is a different, I know we spoke about before, a different job title than what I've seen normally.
Yeah, it's definitely the first time I've come across it in my career as well, Ali. And yeah, full credit goes to Sharon, our CRO, for giving me the opportunity to have this role, which is really dynamic, and that's what I love about it. It's really this, special ops, Swiss Army knife, lots of different hats that I wear, and how I started. So first off, first job out of college was actually a laborer in construction. I'd, done my 4-year BA degree. I was like, I'm done using my brain. I want to just use my body. And so it was 6 days in the field, 12-hour days in the rain, labor, just building this 40-foot retaining wall for a shopping plaza. I had a couple months of that, and I think I was ready to use my brain again and get back, not to say, but yeah, I
Yeah.
was just ready to get out of the field, and so I ended up getting into sales. I applied to an ad in a newspaper when those still existed, I guess. And yeah, it was business development. It was just pure, outbound sales, logistics. Did that for a little bit. Actually, then worked at Dyson, the technology company. Vacuums, hair dryers, all that stuff. In customer care, customer support. And then a buddy of mine said, "Hey, I've got this opportunity to work in tech at Oracle, massive, Fortune 500 tech company, thousands of people." And so I started there. That was my in the tech world as a BDR, initially selling marketing software, marketing automation technology. So I was there for about 3 years, moved out from Toronto area to the West Coast here in BC, Vancouver, and was at another tech firm, marketing tech. And then I was at a risk compliance software, but more for Fortune 500 type audit risk stuff. And it just seemed how, my career kind of came full circle where, again, that first job out of college in construction to now, great, I have this opportunity at SALUS. So I've been at SALUS for just over 5 years now. Started as an individual, account executive contributor. So it was myself and another colleague, Mike, were the two first AEs. And from there, just saw a lot of early traction and wins and momentum, which then translated into me becoming sales team lead, sales manager. I was still oftentimes carrying my own quota and helping, close deals as well. Again, wearing a lot of different hats.
Yeah.
Seed round and then Series A startup, which SALUS is today. And then yeah, this opportunity came up with Shrin to be the sales chief of staff last year. And so yeah, what I love about it is it's the diversity of what it entails, right? And so my ability to be really nimble and help the business where it needs. And right now I'm getting back into some selling, which I'm actually really excited about. Having a blast doing that, meeting with customers face to face on top of some other roles and responsibilities. But ultimately just ensuring that I'm helping from an enablement perspective with the sales team, logistics, all those types of critical things for the business.
Yeah, definitely. I think whatever role that you're in, I think being able to be involved in the sales cycles, understand actually what's working, what's not working. I think as any leader is so important to have that scope. If you're just relying on constantly your AEs or SDRs saying, look, this isn't working, this isn't working, well, sometimes the best thing to do is just pick up the bag and go, I'll go and see if it is. And then you can actually start to identify more clearly, okay, what are we doing wrong? What could we do? What could we improve in our sequences and our campaigns, whatever it be? It's something that is definitely overlooked by a lot of leaders. And actually, the best ones that we've had on the podcast are the ones who are not afraid to just pick up the bag when the time is needed. Again, with CEOs, I think any early stage, generally, I think anything 0 to 50 employees, the CEO should still be involved in some of the hiring processes, getting in front of clients. They're the best person to pick up these big clients because they're the one who's going to build the trust, who knows the product best and can sell the company, hopefully the best. If they are a selling CEO, some people it's not in their wheelhouse, and I understand that. But yeah, I think it's an important trait that's generally missed by some leaders.
Yeah, it's funny when you were just saying that, Ollie, it reminded me of this podcast interview I listened to a couple years back with Tui Kortamash, the founder of Procore,
Yeah.
with a UK-based VC actually, and something that really stuck out to me was at the time, even just a couple years ago, Procore being this publicly traded, massive construction technology firm, and yet here's Tui saying that if he has, when he has a bad day or a stressful day, a tough day, whatever it is, what he loves to do in those situations is pick up the phone and talk to one of his customers. And I love that. I thought, wow, that's so cool to hear that that's something that someone like him and his role is still finding the time to do, or that he actually finds really helpful to help reground him in his endeavors there.
Yeah, definitely. I think otherwise sometimes the direction of a company can be lost. I think you sometimes if you are going through a patch of, I don't know, slow business or whatever it be, pick up the phone, figure out what's going on. It's the quickest way to get answers rather than collecting all this information and data and sifting through, okay, is this rep just having a bad time in general? Or actually, is there a problem that we do need to address? I think that leads quite nicely into the next topic. I'd love to know a little bit more about how you guys are personally going about bringing new clients in or retaining clients, your method for driving revenue, basically,
Yeah, so
without giving away too many secrets, obviously, as well.
sure. I mean, one thing that comes to mind right off the bat is when we touched on the free SALUS safety assistant, or AI system that is free to use for anyone that needs help with building toolbox talks, safe work procedures, these critical safety documents that could take hours, if not longer, to produce, and to have that done in now seconds. So that's obviously a really cool AI platform that we've created and are sharing out with the market. I think if you look back in like my career, 10 or so years ago, the old way of marketing was in getting out to the market and market reach was, very much gated content, right? Fill out this form, like get a recording, fill out this form, get a white paper with, a PDF of however many pages. Now we're doing things like podcasts that are more interactive. We're, providing, free tools of value first. We're delivering value. And if there's something there, and we can help them further drive value for their business, then great. That's what we're here to do and to help spread the word on. So I'd say that's a key tenet for us, Ollie, is delivering value first and ungating content and things like that. I would say it also comes down to our approach to customer success. So, our that's a real focus for us. And if you treat your clients well, your customers, again, being true partners to them, then they'll be true partners back to you. And so I think really, doubling down on those relationships. Like I said, we have this really cool safety social we're hosting in Calgary next week. We've got another one in Edmonton beginning of September. So showing that appreciation to our customers, showing up for them. And I'm sure you found this, Ollie, in the construction world, but it's so much built off of relationships and with that referrals. And I haven't quite seen that in other industries that I've worked with, that level of them referring a system that works well with their immediate networks. It could be the way the construction site operates. You've got the GC and the owner and then all the subs under them. But if that one sub is starting to send their forms up to the GC, or another sub sees what they're doing, the GC sees it, now maybe they're interested in SALUS. If we really invest in ensuring that we're building the right relationships in the right way, and we're providing that level of service, we're constantly innovating and iterating on the product, then we'll start to see those referrals, or we do see those referrals come back organically and in other ways too. So that's really key for us.
Definitely, I think the customer success side in this contact space is huge. I think I've been doing the contact space a year and a half now, and the amount of customer success roles that I've filled is mind blowing compared to when I was doing, let's say, cybersecurity, where I was barely picking up any CS roles. But nearly every startup that I'm working with will fill maybe two AEs, but then I think there's one guy and I filled like 5 customer success roles with them this year. And it is all that emphasis of, and it just shows that how important this industry of developing that relationship, continuing that relationship with these clients is, because the bigger picture is there. As you said, if they're just working with the subcontractors, they want that GC, they want that owner eventually, and it's all going to come by word of mouth. Oh, okay, what software are you using? Oh, how did you do that? How are you so much quicker than the rest of them? Whatever it be, or safer, for example. I love it. I think it's great. I think it shows the real care towards clients. And you can see that reciprocated as a recruiter when working with contact companies. I get a lot more respect and a lot more loyalty from these contact companies compared to cyber companies that I could do a great job and suddenly I'm competing against 8 other recruiters because there's just no care for relationship. It's just like we're an output numbered thing, and we don't care about our relationship. You're just a mule as such. Not to slay it, I still work with some cyber companies, but ones where they have a slightly different mindset towards relationships.
Yeah, thinking more long term. I think more transformational versus transactional with other industries.
Definitely. Where I'd love to get your perspective on, and it's still in the leadership section, is a little bit about identifying future leaders. I'd love to know, what characteristics do you deem to be key to be a successful leader in this day and age?
I think you definitely have to be a self-starter, personally motivated, and then you have to see, this is going to be a terminology that from the Canadian sports world, but Wayne Gretzky, one of his famous sayings was to always, be where the puck, anticipate where the puck was going to be, right? And I think the same applies for yourself and your own journey and trajectory that you're planning for. If that includes leadership, focus and levels, then looking at, okay, well, what do I want to do? and identifying very clearly what are the gaps that I have in terms of skills. What are the skill gaps I have? And what's my plan of attack to address those skill gaps? And how do I start to take on more responsibility now and seek it out? Obviously, you always have to have your core, competencies and roles, responsibilities dialed in. You want to crush it in those areas that you're, expected to today. That's number one. That's without saying. But then on top of that, you want to be understanding and mapping out, hey, what is that leader or that role that I want to get into require? And
Mm.
how do I actually figure that out? And that could be, several different forms. I remember when I was at Oracle, it was reaching out to account executives when I was still a BDR, right? And getting their perspective, and getting their guidance and mentorship. And that helped serve as a bit of a light post for me, or a lighthouse to, you know, what I needed to take care of.
Definitely, foresight is a wonderful trait for people to have, of being able to, okay, look forward. I think when you were talking, it reminded me of when I was in my first ever recruitment role. To get paid more, you had to go up the ranks in regards. You go as a recruiter, executive, at senior, whatever it be. But each one took more responsibility, and you became a leader. But there was no way other than me doing more deals would I make more money. But that was my mindset. My mindset was that, okay, I just need to make more money and I deserve to be promoted. But actually, I should have been looking at it of going, okay, cool. These are the traits of leaders, and I need to find those traits within me. Whereas all I cared about
Mm,
was, how much more money can I make? How can I make more money? Which wasn't the right trait to be having as a leader in the recruitment industry, or especially in that organization. There wasn't this individual contributor path that you could go down. There is now, because when we were leaving it, we were all kicking off about it. Another story for another time. But if I'd had that foresight when I was younger, I probably would have moved through the ranks quicker, because I would have showed the right characteristics to my manager. But I think this is why, to be a successful leader or to move in leadership, it actually, you do have to have experience from behind you, because you understand what it takes to be a good leader.
yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, Ollie, because it spurred in me that I would say a few companies ago, there was really a 180-degree shift for myself personally in terms of mindset. And I'd say really the key was taking responsibility. So when you mentioned earlier, your mindset initially of just like all about me, or how do I do this? And if, it's not going well and you're not making the money you want to, then, oh, well, it's not my fault, it's the company's fault. And these types of beliefs, right? And so that was a big shift for me, was, from a mentor at the time, was actually, shifting the narrative there to understand, hey, look, this is all on me to be able to have the agency to fix and become the person that actually attracts, success for my customers, wealth, happiness for myself and for others. But that was a real distinction and shift. And yeah, I definitely identify with that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, where I'd love to finish off the podcast is a little bit about work-life balance. So I'd love to understand how you personally manage being a top leader, but as you mentioned, also having a young family as well.
Yeah, and you can actually see proof of that in the background.
Yeah, I did. I wasn't gonna say is it a crib. You could have bought it for a dog. I don't know, but
Yeah, I don't
yeah.
have a cool background blurring it out right now. This is my reality. So work-life balance. You can see the crib there. I've got incredible wife and two young boys. Phoenix, he's just over 2, and Kiana, who's 7 months old. So as you
Great
can
name.
imagine, definitely have our hands full at home, and loving every minute of it. It's been such an incredible journey so far, and can't wait to see what the future brings. But yeah, it's it's a balancing act for sure. And I travel for my role, right? That's part of the game. And there's a lot of professions where that happens, right? Could be professional sports or whatever, and players have young families, but it's finding that balance, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think for anybody, I don't think anybody's got the secret sauce behind how to do it. I've filmed over 130 of these episodes, and I always ask about this topic. And it's the same thing of just finding that balance, being able to integrate work and life together, making sure, and as you said, being present. It was something that when I started my company, that I really, really struggled with. Of I wasn't speaking to my family. I just wanted to work. Wasn't speaking to my partner at the time, and it was just that I didn't understand, or I hadn't ever been in a scenario like this where I took something so seriously. And actually, in the end, mentally wise, I actually made myself more ill by actually just throwing myself always into work. And actually, when you've got the balance right, personally you feel better, and work is generally going a lot better as well. Whether it's going for a run or exercising, I know that I'll sometimes go for a week or two of not going to the gym, and I'll look at my outputs of work and I go, it's so bad, but I worked more hours. What's going on? I go, get your lazy ass back in the gym.
Yeah.
And then I'm suddenly like, okay, cool, we've got deals rolling again. I'm mentally there. I've got more time for friends. It's just so important to take time for yourself and also give it to the loved ones as well. Work will find its way to work in between.
Yeah, definitely agree. You got to take care of yourself, take care of your body. It's the one thing you're going to have with you your whole life. People don't think of it that way, and that momentum, those endorphins, that buzz that you get from working out at the gym or sports, running, whatever it is, it just helps carry that momentum with you, and other people feel that too, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, Greg, that is everything from me, and I can't thank you enough for sharing your wisdom, sharing your time with us. I know it's gonna be a great episode when we launch it. So again, thank you for being a guest.
Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity, Ollie. It's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.